Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about something. And somebody asked me how long I've been doing what I've been doing. Let's see. This is my cover photo. After I got a reply from them in the ARDC, shortly afterwards I was confronted by the police department, so I'd leave it alone, go away. Alright. My other videos, I talked to you about a conspiracy against rights under the color of law. We're going to get to a video where this lady literally describes a conspiracy against rights under the color of law. Maybe she wasn't aware. She mentioned a multitude of violations of the Code of Judicial Conduct and the Rules of Professional Conduct, key elements for effective assistance of counsel guaranteed by the Sixth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. Didn't get a fair trial by a lack of effective assistance of counsel, which is a privation of due process. The privation of rights is a common practice in every court. Considering the entities involved, she was revealing a conspiracy against rights under the color of law. Penalties for depriving someone of their rights under the color of law as defined in 18 U.S. Code 242 vary based on the severity of the offenses, ranging from fines and imprisonment to potentially life imprisonment or even the death penalty. A basic violation where no significant harm occurs can result in a fine or imprisonment up to a year. If bodily injury results, the penalty increases to a fine and an imprisonment up to 10 years. In cases involving death, kidnapping, or aggravated sexual abuse, the penalties can include life imprisonment or the death penalty. Here's a breakdown of the penalties: basic violation, no injury, fines and or imprisonment for up to a year; bodily injury, fines and imprisonment up to 10 years; death, kidnapping, aggravated sexual abuse, life imprisonment, or the death penalty; use of dangerous weapon, explosives, or fire penalties can be enhanced, potentially leading to a 10-year sentence or more, depending on the circumstances. Okay, and I could literally say that for almost everything I post. I keep pointing out to people that due process doesn't exist. They think it's just in the court they're in. No, but it's in every court. The key common denominator in every court are the rules of professional conduct and the Code of Judicial Conduct, which are the legal responsibilities of all attorneys and judges in every court of law. No matter what, it could be traffic court, eviction court, custody, child custody, probate, guardianship. No matter what court it is, the rules of professional conduct and the Code of Judicial Conduct are legal responsibilities of all lawyers and judges in the court of law. These are the laws in the court of law. And if they don't abide by these rules and codes, they are breaking the law. And it's mandatory to report misconduct in both or either the rules of professional conduct and the Code of Judicial Conduct. And you can't violate the rules of professional conduct without violating the Code of Judicial Conduct, and you can't violate the Code of Judicial Conduct without violating the rules of professional conduct, because they're intertwined. They're connected because reporting misconduct is mandatory in both. Failure to report misconduct is misconduct. Okay. So let's get to this beautiful person's
expert, as well as someone with personal involvement in the Family Court of Bergen County, New Jersey.
Could you please tell us your expertise?
I'm a forensic psychiatrist and violence expert with 25 years of experience. I've been in criminal and civil courts as an expert witness in about 200 cases. About 50 of them are in family court.
That'll do it. All right. Please proceed, ma'am.
Just to give a little bit of more background, I am president of the World Mental Health Coalition, co-founder of the Violence Prevention Institute. I was a research fellow of the National Institute of Mental Health, taught at Yale School of Medicine and Yale Law School for 17 years before transferring to the Harvard program in psychiatry and the law. In 2007, I helped co-author the United Nations Secretary General's chapter on violence against children, among other international documents, helping governments to implement prison reform and other violence reduction programs. For clinical practice, I work in maximum security prisons, treating some of the most violent individuals our society produces. Yet, nothing prepared me for family court. We do not ordinarily think of family courts as sites of violence, but by denying, or worse, exploiting the existence of domestic violence and child abuse, family courts have become one of the deadliest places for children and the adults who try to protect them. I commend you for calling these meetings and calling out family court as the national emergency that it is. I have testified before the legislatures of Colorado, New York, Louisiana, Tennessee, and Washington, and I'm very honored to be here. I'll be submitting a more scholarly written testimony for the record, but here I will not mince words. Family courts are a danger to society, and unless dramatically reformed, they need to be abolished altogether for the safety of our children and their loving families. This may sound extreme, but when an institution causes far greater harm than good, indeed sends close to 100,000 children per year to their sole murder, if not actual murder, then such an intervention is necessary. I have the empirical data to back up my claims, which I can get to if there's time. Despite my 25 years as an expert witness for the courts, I did not know about family courts. Since learning about them, I've tried to take as many cases as possible, but while I'm considered a highly qualified expert in criminal and any other court, only in family court have I been unwelcome. In fact, judges often try to find almost any reason not to admit me. This is because they, as a rule, are not looking for qualified experts. They seek poorly trained or compromised so-called experts who will fix the results in the direction they desire. In other words, the opposite direction of which the case should go. Unfortunately, sending children to their abuse, rape, battery, murder, sex trafficking, and pornography production has become a lucrative business. I would not have known about family courts except for my sister's divorce. One moment, her children are thriving under her care with perfect physical and psychological health, and she's praised around the neighborhood for her parenting skills, consulted by other parents and teachers. The next moment, her previously absentee father files for divorce, and her children are seized in a police raid without warning on their legitimately assigned weekend to be together, and the violently abusive father who almost killed each of his two children by head injury gets sole custody. And the mother has not seen or heard from them, the children she raised since birth, for the next 4 years. Not even 1 minute. And what is the reason that the family court gave? She was supposedly mentally ill, even though no licensed professional ever raised any concerns. Subsequently, she has been evaluated by 11 world-renowned psychiatric experts, some of them consultants to the United Nations, the U.S. Supreme Court, and the International Criminal Court, who all unanimously said she had excellent mental health and exceptional talent in parenting. But none of this mattered. Only one unlicensed and unqualified associate counselor with a master's degree contradicted them all. And this is the one report the family court judge would accept. In addition to these so-called experts, family courts make use of guardians ad litem. In my sister's case, the guardian ad litem lied or perjured 600 documented times in her case, and even co-conspired with her ex-husband to attempt to cause her demise, putting her in the intensive care unit. But in the end, Judge Jane Galina Mecca only protected her, the guardian ad litem. In fact, the judge now regularly appoints this guardian ad litem, Evelyn Asirios, in almost every case she presides over. For these reasons, we are now pursuing the impeachment of Jane Galena Mecca. But I'm sure this is a familiar story, and it is correct to address this as a systemic problem. After participating in approximately 50 family court cases, I've come to learn that my sister's situation is not at all unusual. Cases may vary widely, but family courts all across the country produce almost the same result when abuse is alleged, which is the vast majority of custody cases. That is, custody is almost invariably taken from the stable, nurturing parent who are well bonded with their children to be given to their abusers. The more clear-cut the case, the more draconian this formula. And the stronger the evidence the good parent presents, the more retaliation they face. I've not once seen supervised visits be applied to the dangerous parent, and if the children resist, as healthy children would, they're sent to reunification camps, which are in truth torture camps, intended to extinguish any drive to resist their own abuse. And the same holds true for reunification therapy. I guess I'm running out of time, so...
Oh, no, ma'am, you have plenty of time. Please proceed.
Thank you. I have often compared family courts to the prisons that I have studied for decades. Medieval barbarism that civilized society cannot imagine happens within them. Those who enter are grievously maltreated, and all manner of human rights violations occur with no accountability because of a lack of transparency. Torture is routine, and even murder goes unpunished. In family courts, judges have the authority to seal their cases, and this essentially gives them star chamber-like secrecy. Without a jury or any oversight, what occurs within is usually unmoored from the law, especially with the exceptional discretion that people have talked about, that family judges have. This was initially granted so that judges could exercise benevolence with vulnerable families, but a 120-year chronicle has shown that it has rather been used for malevolence quite regularly. When tragic deaths happen all too often, the public assumes that there must have been extenuating circumstances or that these institutions are doing their best under difficult circumstances. They do not imagine that family courts actually facilitated the deaths or even forced them on families that mobilized all their resources to prevent. I've come to call family courts anti-courts, where case-fixing replaces fact-finding, pseudoscience is given precedence over established science, conflicts of interest replace any semblance of impartiality, and the greatest injustices done to families are committed in the name of justice. If a hospital or clinic were deliberately killing rather than curing people, it would immediately be shuttered, but when courts do this, there's no relief because of judicial immunity, and we have learned that judges cannot be relied upon to hold other judges accountable. Instead, prisons and family courts, because of their secrecy and impunity, have become magnets for violent, sadistic, and psychopathic individuals who relish exercising power over others. Those who do not go along with the culture usually are threatened or ousted. Prison guards may be seen as poorly trained individuals who come from similar backgrounds as the prisoners, but family court players are even more dangerous since they're driven by a $50 to $175 billion industry hidden beneath the power of being called a court. Now there's a bunch of statistics that I could cite. I'll submit it in...
Well, if you would, just get the statistics to our office, and we'll appreciate that.
I will do so. This is all scientifically supported.
Okay.
The public is unaware of the epidemic of violence occurring through the family courts because judges threaten reporters and journalists as well to control their coverage. When a major magazine published an interview with me, the judge in my sister's case issued an order for them to immediately unpublish the article. When their legal department sternly rebuked the judge for violating the First Amendment, she rather returned to her drawing board and issued a second order. It turned out that even the Washington Post had shamed her 10 years earlier for trying to order the takedown of another article, but because of impunity, she remains undaunted, and her unconstitutional orders are continue. The end result is that this magazine and others vow never to cover family court stories again. The United
Well, that's
Nations.
a mistake.
Excuse me?
As we've said earlier, Justice Brandeis.
That's right.
How about a little sunshine on this? And frankly, ma'am, you put more sunshine on this than many of the people that have testified over the last 3 hearings.
Well, I've been in a lot of cases and I've examined all the evidence. It's not insufficiency of evidence. It's not ignorance or incompetence. It's quite despairingly deliberate.
I appreciate that. And we really have run out of time with you. I'd let you talk the rest of the day if I could get away with it. But we do have a couple questions for you, all right? At least I know everybody else is chomping at the bit. One major question for me is, in your professional opinion, with all that you've heard and what you've clearly lived through, and I presume that your sister's case is out of New York? Or
New Jersey, actually, Bergen
New Jersey,
County.
okay. Same with us out in the West. Do you think or believe that judges have been taken in by this psycho, I'm going to call it psychobabble, but you called it pseudoscience, pseudopsychology, almost in a Svengali kind of way where they just totally disregard a mountain of evidence in front of them for the shiny object in the room that is somehow overtaken the thought process of the judge. Could you speak to that?
I would say the direction was actually in the opposite, that judges go looking for experts who will give them the whatever theory that will allow them to give the children to their abusers. And, parental alienation, for example, is one which has been used as a tactic to deflect from and deny abuse allegations. I actually say that it's a pretext for predatory alienation of the good parent.
Okay. Have you ever heard of AFCC?
Yes. Unfortunately, they are quite driven by the parental alienation theory, and I believe that is because it brings them profit.
Well, all right, you jumped right to the next question. Good. I'll go ahead and put it out there. It occurs to me that this organization, from everything that I've seen, read, really has a profit motive that it's driven by, not necessarily a best interest of the child. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay.
And actually, very distressingly, not only is this prevalent in all 50 U.S. states, I will say, and I've personally been in cases in about 20 to 30 states, and it has been used as a business model, exported abroad, to the point where the United Nations Human Rights Council put out a major report in 2023 alerting this family court problem as a public health crisis because of the model that's been exported from the U.S. abroad.
I presume that report is online, that we can pull it
Yes.
out?
Okay.
If you would, could you give us the report title to that so that we can pull that
Yes,
in?
it's by the UN Special Rapporteur on violence against children and women.
Okay, we'll definitely make that part of our report. One last question I have before I turn it over to my colleagues. Have you heard of something called COBE?
Yes.
What's your opinion of court-ordered behavioral intervention?
I find it to be coercive. In fact, I call it torture, and it is intended to inculcate in children that that what they see, heard, and have experienced is untrue, and it's a form of thought reform, in my view.
Okay, so I've been not just in cases for myself personally, but for years I've been doing my best to help people with other things. pretty successful helping minor things, traffic court, but I've helped a couple people in child court custody because of ineffective assistance to counsel, because of judicial misconduct, and I just use the laws. Okay.
Yes, I'm Bandy Lee. I'm from New York City.
Doing my best to change what I want to see in the world. You don't have to go to my Facebook and send me any friend requests. Please don't do that. I'm a recluse. I have a vast tendency to keep to myself. But I'm just trying to pass on a lot of information. Like I said, I've been at it a lot of years. This letter up here shows a date, 92. I contacted the DOJ a couple times after that. I never get a response. And no matter what I filed, I guess I'm blackballed because they never answer. I was surprised I got a letter from, actually, this is a letter from the FBI. Saying they forwarded to the DOJ. And I contact them, and I never get an answer back. I call, So there's some other things I want to do, and I'm using these videos to make everything I'm doing, which is all legal, just that everybody I contact is supposed to do their job. They don't do their job. You have no idea how hard it is to get a public servant, a lawyer, a judge, the DOJ, the FBI, the Attorney General, U.S. Attorney General, last time I was at the Attorney General's office, they laughed at me. We don't work for you, we work for the government. But they have a civil rights division. And they didn't like my asserting deprivation of rights. The conspiracy against rights under the color of law. And then throwing a whole lot of laws at them. People ask me how I remember this. I don't know. Sometimes I read things I can't forget. Okay, but
I'm from New York City. I will be speaking as an expert, as well as someone with personal...
So this lady coming forward, I posted on my page Legal Reform on Facebook. I'm contacted with a lot of groups trying to help them with their custody cases using the law. And once you go through everything I point out, you'll find that nobody's doing that. I mean, if the Department of Government Efficiency was actually on the job, they wouldn't be cutting jobs. They would be going in there and, their job descriptions literally on the internet. DOJ has a website, FBI, look up list of government civil rights divisions, or government departments with civil rights divisions, and there's numerous of them, state, federal, otherwise, for different issues. So I'm just sharing this. Somebody else shared it. It's on TikTok over here. See, that's whoever posted it on TikTok. It's on Facebook. I seen it on Instagram, and so I thought I might share TikTok, but not just the video.
Involvement.
She literally describes a conspiracy against rights under the color of law. Okay. Penalties for depriving somebody for rights under the cover. That's just a copy and paste off the internet. I put penalties for depriving someone of their rights under the color of law, and then this came up, okay? And it's legal websites that I use. Okay. So what I post is not a matter of opinion. It's a matter of fact. It's the law. Don't argue with me. It's the law. You want to argue with the law, by all means. And I even show you where to do it. I show you which laws. I give you a whole lot of stuff you should know. And believe me, the only time you'll achieve or ever get effective assistance of counsel if you get the legal learnings of an educated, seasoned professional if you go to law school. But I can show you a few shortcuts. That's why I created Legal Reform. I've been many different courts, not just for myself, but helping a lot of others. I've always had this self-imposed ethic about knowledge not shared is wasted. And I spent a long time gathering this and not talking about it, showing people. Because these are not only, their constitutional duties, but as well as your constitutional rights, okay? Remember, your constitutional rights are the constitutional duties, the jobs of everybody that takes the oath. And violating the oath is punishable by fines, removal from public service, and incarceration. I did a video on that too. Nothing but peace and love, people. I want to make another video real quick about my page, Legal Reform. Somebody asked a very simple question, but then again, it's not that simple. And I've never believed any question to be stupid. Okay, so I do my best to answer all questions. So I'm going to get to that, but states are starting to investigate CPS. I was just giving you this lady's knowledge of what's going on and what I know, what you can do to stop it. Okay, so we're going to use my page of Legal Reform in the next one to give you a brief or a synopsis of how to use it. Okay, I've explained it to other people before, and there's this one guy, John Q. Public, I'll call him, average Joe, and he's having difficulties, but there's a lot of things that I showed him, and he is literally being the hero in his own story in child custody court. He is. He's magnificent. He thought he couldn't understand the law, didn't understand the law because of what lawyers and judges told him. They're usually, and they're having him compete with them in the court of law, even his own lawyers. So when I gave him the rules, professional conduct, the code of judicial conduct, the letter of the law, which clearly states that anything written must be done word for word to the letter. Okay, and quite a few other things. And that guy was full of questions. And I was more than happy to answer them. Okay, he's posting some videos online. He's asking about complete share. But see, this is exactly what he's going through. A conspiracy against rights under the color of law. Not only did his lawyers not do anything, because in the rules of professional conduct, the preamble, it clearly states that your lawyer is supposed to act in your case as if it was their very existence on the line. And now it is, because once you look up the rules of professional conduct in the code of judicial conduct, you'll find no lawyer does none of that, no judge does none of that, nobody does anything I talk about on legal reform. A whole lot of laws that are being broken. I've seen people go to prison for a small amount of weed. And now here we are, all our public servants, holding themselves above the law. And what does the rule of law say? No kings. How about no kings, no monarchy, no hierarchy. You know, remember the kings had their prince. There was a prince, princess, queen, dukes, duchesses. There was a hierarchy, and that's what we have right now. When our politicians quite literally replace the monarchy, and some take it to a greater extent than others, in violating your birthrights, your constitutional rights, the Bill of Rights. Okay, so I'm doing my best to look out for you, just like I would look out for me. You want to judge me by the content of my character, U.S. Constitution. Then judge me by the content of my heart, we the people. I may not have taken the oath, but as a child when I took the Pledge of Allegiance, and I finally read the Constitution, I knew what I was pledging that allegiance to. Not to a government, not to a politician, not a political party, and definitely not Wall Street. It's time to end the corporacy, people. It's time to end the corporacy. Nothing but peace and love. May Creator rain many blessings, long life and good health, my friends.
To the Family Court of Bergen County, New Jersey.
Could you please tell us your expertise? Your expertise?
I'm a